Hello and welcome to Gardening with Ben, your go-to podcast for all things green and growing. I'm Ben, your allotment guide, and here to help you cultivate your garden and your passion for plants. Whether you're a seasoned gardener or just starting out, this podcast is for you. Each episode will dig into tips, tricks and techniques to make your garden and allotment thrive. From planting, sowing and growing, we will share all the tips and advice. We will also have regular episodes talking about what we have been up to on the allotment. So sit back, grab a brew and enjoy today's episode. Hey everyone and welcome back to Gardening with Ben. We're back after a busy weekend down at the allotment. Wow, we certainly got plenty done. And hopefully we'll be getting plenty done next weekend. So make sure you stay tuned for later in the week when we'll talk about what we're hoping to get done down there next weekend. Fingers crossed the snow don't come. We'll have to see. But what are we going to be talking about today? Well, today we're going to talk about tips for newbies, tips for new starters on allotments, and sharing any advice from what I've learned over the years of having an allotment on the best way to start an allotment and to get it all in shape, really. So, welcome to Gardening with Ben. If you're new, make sure you do give us a follow. These podcasts do come out every single day at the moment. So, we're going to be talking about how to get started on an allotment. When you're looking at getting an allotment or a piece of land when you wanted to do your allotment, the biggest tip I can give to having an allotment is to make sure that there is water on site. Yes, they do cost more to rent a year. Like my plot's £100 a year, which isn't a lot of money when you think about it. But some plots you can get like for £20 a year and stuff like that, but they don't come with water. And you'll think, oh, well, I can just save it from my shed or save it from the rain throughout the year. But trust me, it's never enough rain to catch to be able to water your plants. Now, I obviously have plenty of water butts around my allotment and try and catch as much rainwater as possible, especially through the winter months, to water, because they turn our water off at our site like around now till around April time. So I need to save as much as water as possible. And there was a couple of years ago when we had a heat wave, and literally I was talking to people that had allotments and they didn't have water on site, and they were struggling to keep things watered as it was too hot. They'd run out of water and they couldn't get any more rainwater to water the plants. They had to bring water to the site with them to keep things watered because they couldn't get enough rain to water. So that is one of the main things I think that you need to look for when you do get an allotment, if you're looking at getting one. Now, obviously, once you get your piece of land, you see it and you think, wow, that's a mess. Because trust me, they never come in a good state. They always come looking like a bomb site, and they're full of weeds, full of rubbish, etc. like that. So the best way to get started on an allotment is trim it all down if possible. If you've got a trimmer, trim it all down and cover it over. Cover the full plot over with either black membrane, any tarpaulin, any weed suppressant, cardboard. Cover the plot over so that no sunlight can get to the weeds to get them to grow back. So cover it over and then you can see the size of your plot and where to start, basically. Now, I've had my plot 20 years and I've still not got it all tidied and done up. As my main thing, what I suggest is that you start at the bottom and work your way back up the plot. And you can do it over a number of years. Don't try and do it all in 1 year. Trust me, I've learned from that mistake. Like when I first got my plot, I got a rotavator and I rotavated it. One of the worst things that I ever did was rotivate it, because it just chops all the weeds up into hundreds more and you get a load more weeds growing back. The best way to do it is dig it all out manually. And yeah, you might say that's a big job in itself, but trust me, if you've covered it over, most of it will be dead and you'll just be digging out the roots of plants. And that way you can uncover a bit at a time, weed a bit, uncover a bit more, weed a bit. And once you've weeded it, you can even cover it back over until you actually need it, rather than leaving it all uncovered and all the weeds start growing again. Because I've seen plots where people have cleared them all within a weekend, literally in a weekend. Like fetched an army of people down, or fetched a JCB down to scrape off all the top and pile it at the bottom. And they've been back full of weeds within a few weeks, and they end up giving up the plot because they think it's an easy thing to do. If you're thinking that it's easy to have an allotment, trust me, it's not. It's a full-time job in itself. Hence why I go down every weekend. I'd go down every day if I could, and I still probably wouldn't be on top of it. It is a massive job having an allotment, keeping it all tidied, watering all your seeds, potting them all up, etc., etc. So yeah, I don't advise to get a rotavator when you're first doing it. You maybe want to get a rotavator after you've dug it over to break up the soil, but you need to get the roots out first before you start using a rotavator, or you will get absolutely loads more roots on the plot, and that is one thing that you don't want. So obviously once you've cleared it, you need to start working out a plan of your allotment. Have a look at where the sun comes up, see where it goes down, where most of the plot is covered in sun for the day, see how much sunlight gets to certain areas. Then draw a plan of your allotment. Draw what you want to grow where and where you want it to grow. And think about your paths as well, as you need a lot of paths in between your beds and stuff. Don't think that you should have massive beds. It's good to have smaller beds and plenty of paths to go around so that you can reach to the middle of the bed and you can weed easy and keep things clear and tidy. I did this. I used to have big beds, but then I started making them smaller so that I could get around them pretty easy. And now all my beds are in place and all my paths are in place. I've got my layout. I just have to clear it every year and dig it over and just sort out the paths every year and do it that way. And once you've got your beds built and you're on top of it, you can literally just keep changing where you plant stuff every single year, and it's perfect pretty much. So obviously, like I say, you need to know where to grow things, whether it needs a sunny spot or a shady spot. Have a look at where the sun does shine on your plot. Then obviously a next big thing for your plot is whether you want a shed and a greenhouse. I highly recommend both of them. However, I wouldn't go for a glass greenhouse on an allotment because you don't know how safe the plot is or whether people are going around and stuff like that. And if a window smashes, you'll end up with thousands of pieces everywhere. So never look at getting a glass greenhouse. I'd always go for the Perspex one. And yes, the wind can blow the Perspex out, but what my dad's done, he's screwed wood either side of the panels so that they won't come out at all. And it's secure, it's down, it's in an open area, and he's never had any damage on his greenhouse. It's not bent, it's not buckled or anything like that. It's screwed down well to the ground. It won't move at all. So always make sure that your greenhouse is secure. Obviously, I've not got a greenhouse. I built myself a shed out of Perspex because I'm like 6'5", so I needed it tall. I used to have a greenhouse and I used to find it awkward to get around it. So I built myself a shed and did it that way. Obviously, a shed's good to have because then if it is raining, you can potter around in the shed and you can have a brew and have a sit down, have a chill out, store your seeds and stuff like that, but never store any expensive tools on the allotment. Never put a lock on your shed either, because if you put a lock on your shed, then people think there is something in there to steal. And that's when people break into them and stuff like that. I've seen plenty of people lock the sheds up and then like people just smash the shed up just to get into it, if you get me. So I don't have a lock on my shed whatsoever. If somebody wants to go in my shed, they can do. They'll get in anywhere, so I might as well just leave it unlocked for people just to wander in. Like I say, I have nothing of any value in my shed. It's only my cat food to feed my cat. But yeah. And next up, after obviously you're thinking about a shed or a greenhouse, a polytunnel. If you're looking at getting a polytunnel on your plot, don't get one of these that are like little squares, all plastic type thing. You usually find them cheap at like £100 for a smallish one, and they look like little squares, either white or the green plastic, because these are absolutely rubbish. They shouldn't be allowed to sell them, I don't believe, because they just disintegrate, they just rip when it's windy. They're absolutely useless. They shouldn't be allowed to sell them. If you're looking at getting a polytunnel, look at the bigger brands like Northern Polytunnel, First Polytunnels, all the polytunnel brands out there. And yes, they are expensive, but the steel poles, and mine cost me £500, but mine's a 25-foot one. You can get smaller ones, but they are expensive. But trust me, it'll last years. My polytunnel's been up now 15 years, and it's still standing strong. I'm taping bits up, because yes, the plastic has started to go on the folds, but it's still standing, and it's standing a lot longer than what would these cheaper ones would. They just buckle, absolutely rubbish. Next up is paths and paving and stuff like that. If you wanted to save money on your allotment, obviously look around and see what freebies you can get. This is when obviously you become a skip finder. Yes, you start looking at skips, start seeing what people are throwing out, start checking out for people doing up the gardens and stuff like that, because getting freebies for the allotment is absolutely perfect. Now, Facebook Marketplace, obviously you can get free stuff as well. And yeah, keep an eye out for greenhouses on there, keep an eye out for sheds, keep an eye out for paving slabs, because if you get paving slabs for your allotment, they're like gold. Trust me, if paving slabs appear on Facebook Marketplace, they've gone literally straight away. And they're perfect for paths. If you can lay all your paths in paving slabs, get it done, because obviously that it's easier to maintain, it's easier to sweep them down, and you won't get no weeds growing if you put black membrane down underneath them and put that on top, and it's more level to walk on, and you don't get mucky or anything like that. So yeah, look out on Facebook Marketplace or Gumtree for freebies and try and use them if possible. So yeah, that is my basic tips for anyone that's planning on starting an allotment, and I hope that you found it useful. We'll talk about more topics in podcasts to come, so stay tuned for that. But if you're new to following us, if you're new to listening to us, give us a follow and feel free to like it, share it, and I hope that you come back for more podcasts. And if you're listening on YouTube, hello on YouTube, and welcome to Gardening with Ben's podcast. Well, we're finishing now, but I hope you've enjoyed it, as obviously these are going out on YouTube as well now. So lots more listeners and lots more viewers. So until next time, everyone, remember, keep smiling, keep shining, and keep gardening with Ben, everyone. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Gardening with Ben. I hope you have found some useful tips and inspiration for your own gardening and allotment journey. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to follow and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a new episode. And if you have a moment, I'd love for you to leave a review and share the podcast with fellow gardening enthusiasts. Your support helps us grow this community and continue bringing you great content. You can also follow us on social media on every platform called Gardening with Ben for daily gardening tips and updates. Happy gardening, and until next time, remember, keep smiling, keep shining, and keep gardening with